The DreaMachine is, well, it's many different things. It's looking at it as an object. It's kind of a piece of art. It's a duct tape, paper clip approach to spiritual enlightenment. It's a remnant of the 20th century. It's was designed to be a non-drug way of getting into a dream state. This was its initial intention. And then one of Brian Geison's descriptions is it was the first piece of art that was intended to look at with your eyes closed. The DreaMachine comes from the imagination of Brian Geison and the mathematic genius of Ian Somerville. William Burroughs was one of my really early, and still is, major influences. The name Brian Geison kept coming up. There were bands like Throbbing Gristle, like Laurie Anderson, like Cabaret Voltaire, who cited Brian Geison as an influence. So I was like, who is this guy? Why does his name keep coming up? Brian Geison was a visual artist. He was also into calligraphy. He worked for the Canadian Army during World War II as a code breaker. He was a spy. He was a master of languages. He was a master of the hidden. Rub out the word was one of his big phrases. He wanted to disappear into the normal. He felt that the shadow world was more real than the real world, but they had to coincide. Very interesting guy. He's kind of like the Sorcerer's Apprentice of the 20th century. He was a person who the major literary, musical, artistic icons of the 20th century cite as a reference. He's someone that most people don't know about, but art would not be the same if he wasn't around. This is a quote from Brian Geison's diary from the 2nd of February, 1958. Quote, "Had a transcendental storm of color visions today in the bus going to Marseille. We ran through a long avenue of trees and I closed my eyes against the setting sun. An overwhelming flood of intensely bright colors exploded behind my eyelids. A multi-dimensional kaleidoscope whirling out through space. I was swept out of time. I was out in a world of infinite number. The vision stopped abruptly as we left the trees. Was that a vision? What happened to me?" He related it to his longtime lover, compatriot, collaborative genius Ian Somerville, who was a mathematician and an early computer programmer, wizard. Again, one of those forgotten people of the mid-20th century. Ian Somerville realized that what Geison was describing was a rhythmic pattern, a rhythmic disturbance to the alpha waves of the sensory part of his eyes. And realized in some wonderful cryptic way that, wow, 78 RPM record player, turntable spinning around, and we can recreate this. The DreaMachine is constructed, the main part is really the paper tube itself. That's the most difficult part. Otherwise, what you need is an old 78 RPM record player and a light bulb suspended in the middle of the paper tube. The tube itself, what you need is a good heavy stock piece of paper, large enough. You draw a template on there. You have these 5 pieces. You cut out the panels, you place them on the grid, trace them, and then you cut them all out. And you tape it together, put it on the 78 player, turn it on, and you get a flicker of light. And you get really close, and you close your eyes. And it works better the closer you get. It's very pleasant. But again, the moment I open my eyes, all I see is a light bulb and then a tube of spinning paper. So can't tell you what other people see, but when I first read about it, they talk about like mild hallucinations and colors and patterns. What I saw um, was like basic geometric shapes, diamonds, squares, circles, um, and then vague patterns kind of not really materializing. I mean, all these words don't really fit the experience. But what's happening is that your vision's going between light and dark. It's a flicker, it's a shadow. So you kind of, what I see are like patterns kind of coming out like this and like this simultaneously, but they don't just appear in one place because actually what's happening is it's burning on your retina. So it actually kind of appears in the back of your brain, appears in the front of your brain, kind of on the side of your brain. The DreaMachine, I think, is used for several different things. Um, One idea is to place the user into a creative state of mind, say before making a painting or writing or really anything where you just have to really commit yourself to being open. And that process is usually quite different than our day to day, I have to go to work and put gas in my car process that we have to deal with. And so sometimes you need to. The idea was a drugless turn on. Instead of escaping with drugs or alcohol, you would use this to place yourself into a creative state of mind. When I've done performances and I've set this up, people either feel like they're having a very mild hallucinatory, dreamlike experience, or they feel like they're about to throw up with motion sickness. And one of the real important things to realize is that whatever you are experiencing will stop the instant that you open your eyes. And so rather than committing yourself to something, like say a drug or that will take 12 hours to get out of your system, you're like, oh, I don't like this. Oh, no, what am I going to do? Um, if you're looking at the DreaMachine and you're like, I don't like this, I don't know what I'm going to do, you open your eyes and it stops. There's no ill effect. You don't feel like you're going to, oh, better open the window. I think I'm going to be car sick or anything like that. It just stops. So, good or bad, it's very interesting how people react, but across the board, again, it stops the moment you open your eyes. So it's a kind of an easy thing to experience. I find that the DreaMachine is very relaxing. It's calming. It's kind of a nice, mellow, and I do use that word hesitantly. I really do. It's kind of a nice, mellow feeling. A very good friend of mine who is someone I would burden with the word genius absolutely hates it. It makes him feel like he's going to fall over, and it's really unpleasant for him. So it's really hit and miss. But again, the important thing is that whatever you experience with this stops the moment you choose to open your eyes. Who uses dream machines? Boy, artists, freaks, musicians, people fully immersed in the counterculture. I would imagine people who are looking for experiential parts of their lives. The only way that you would really have any kind of awareness of a dream machine is if you were immersed in the counterculture, if you knew who William Burroughs was or Kurt Cobain supposedly, you know, blasted his head off after looking at this thing for 12 hours, which I don't believe. There was one spinning in his apartment or his garage condo thing or whatever it was. So he was using it, but I doubt that it drove him to do that. He was a pretty sad, unhappy person to begin with. So I think it's people who are searching for external ways of expanding their consciousness, really. And what's great about the Dream Machine is that it's not illegal. You're not going to feel like hell in the morning after looking at it, like you will with some of the substances that will take people on, these types of adventures. But the curious, the artistic, I think the trendy, it's like, oh yes, we were hanging out with Burroughs and looking at the Dream Machine, and it's like, give me a break. Um, Curious. I think it's the curious who will use the Dream Machine. Yeah, that thing really is photogenic. That was a comment I've heard too, is that people say that it's a lot